What's up, guys? This is Pedro from My Stuttering Life. On this podcast, we are going to talk about our challenges and our triumphs, and so that anyone around the world can truly know that you are not alone. So let's get started. This is episode number 148, and my special guest is Scott Yaruss. Scott Yaruss, a PhD, is a professor of communicative sciences and disorders at Michigan State University and the president of Stuttering Therapy Resources, Incorporated, a specialty publishing company dedicated to helping speech-language pathologists help people who stutter. A practicing clinician for more than 30 years, Yaruss is a board-certified specialist in stuttering therapy and a fellow of the American Speech-Language Hearing Association. His research, which is funded by both the NIH and the NSF, focuses on diminishing the adverse impact that many people who stutter face in their lives. He has published more than 135 peer-reviewed articles about stuttering and more than 250 other articles, books, and chapters about stuttering. He has also given more than 800 professional developmental workshops for organizations around the world. I am honored to have him as a guest with me on the My Stuttering Life podcast. Welcome, Scott Yaruss.
Thanks so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Welcome, sir. This is a huge honor, and we have a lot of topics to go over, so let's get started. All right, sir?
Fantastic.
All right. So here we go. So when do people first begin to stutter?
Sure. It's a great question. Most of the time, people start to stutter when they're young, typically between the ages of about 2.5 and about 4. But importantly, it can happen later than that too. Kids can start stuttering at age 5 or 6 even. Less commonly, people can even start stuttering later than that. It can happen at 9, 12. I've worked with people who started at age 15, never stuttered before, just started. But the majority are in those very early preschool years.
Can we talk about the language of it? Because okay, in my history, I would always refer to myself as a stutterer, but over the years, it doesn't define who I am. It is just what I have, and so now I am a person who has a stutter. Can you talk about is that a new movement or?
Great. So historically, yes, people were referred to as stutterers. And it was customary to use what's known these days as identity language to refer to people. Then there became some concern about referring to people using identity language and calling people stutterer, because the goal was to convey respect to the individual and indicate that they're not just a stutterer, that there's more to them than that, and people would say, I'm more than just my stutter. And it became customary then to use what's known as person first language, person who stutters. And in fact, as many things do, a pendulum will swing back and forth between one idea and the other. The pendulum swung hard toward person first language, and it became required in journal articles, for example, to say person who stutters. But then people started doing some research asking people who stutter what they actually preferred, which would make sense. Should have started there, maybe. And it turned out that a lot of people who stutter didn't much care. Some did care a lot, and they preferred person who stutters. Others preferred stutterer. And so right now, the field of speech language pathology is comfortable using both terms. Both are allowable. What I do as a clinician is I ask people what they prefer. How do you refer to yourself? What terminology would you like me to use? And then you'll also see the variant that you mentioned, person with a stutter, okay, a person who has a stutter. That's another example of a person first rather than an identity language. And of course, perfectly acceptable if that's what people prefer. So you'll find a certain percentage who prefers to say that, or I have a stutter, as opposed to I am a stutterer, or I am a person who stutters. The silly thing, I'm the only person in the whole world who cares about this, that in the academic literature, people didn't want to have to write out person who stutters back when person first language was required. So they started using an abbreviation for this, an initialism, PWS. That just makes me nuts. And again, I'm the only person in the world who cares about this. Because if you're trying to show respect to a person by highlighting their personness, well, it's even less respectful to just turn them into string letters. You're a PWS, right? I would rather say you're a person who stutters. And so you'll hear me say it the whole way out. And in my articles, I'll say it the whole way. Person who stutters, individual who stutters, person living with stuttering, person with a history of stuttering. There's a whole bunch of different ways of saying it, but the idea is to convey respect. And then I know plenty of folks who just say, call me a stutterer. And so at their invitation, that's what I'll do, right? But it is a funny thing in the field.
All right, sir. I thank you for that. I thank you for that. Awesome, awesome. Now, does it run in families?
It does indeed. Yes. Most of the time, but not always, we can find a family history of stuttering. Okay. The recent research shows that somewhere between 50 to maybe 80% of the time, if you find one person in a family who stutters, you'll find another person in the close family who also stutters. Okay. So in my family, for example, my grandfather stuttered. Okay. He was the only one that he knew in his family. I don't know about anybody above that because we just don't have connection, right? But so my grandfather stuttered. He had two sons. My uncle, oh, sorry, I'm moving my hands around and it detected
I see
that
balloons.
as
Yeah.
a,
It's all good.
balloons. Hooray, hooray. So yes, well, it was exciting that my grandfather had two sons. Yes, it's good news. The computer's happy about that. My uncle, he stuttered, but my father did not. Okay. And then down to my level, my father had one son, just me. I did not stutter. My uncle, who stuttered, didn't have kids. He had dogs, and it's very hard to tell if they stutter because, well, dogs, and they're adopted anyway. So it's hard to know if there's a genetic link, but most of the time there is some genetic link that we can find. There's that mystery 20% or so where even when we take the most careful pedigree, what about your parents? What about your cousins? What about your grandparents? Where we can't find it. And there's a bunch of possible explanations for that. One of those may just be that there's no family history, but another has to do with the idea that, Sometimes defining stuttering and identifying stuttering can be challenging. And it's quite possible that somebody stuttered, but didn't talk about it much, or wasn't in contact with the family. So we may not know about some of this, but yeah, definitely runs in families and for genetic reasons.
And I mean, that is just a fascinating. Do you find it more on the male side, or or the a female side?
Great question again. Indeed, it appears that more males than females stutter. The traditional number that's thrown around from the studies that we have is about 3 or 4 or 5 to 1 males to females. Okay. I typically use 4 because it's somewhere in the middle, about 4 to 1 males to females. But here's an interesting thing. If you look at children very close to onset, right around age 2 and 3, when they're first starting to stutter, the difference, the male to female ratio is closer to 1 to 1 or even 2 to 1. So what happens is that as children grow, many stop stuttering, but more girls stop stuttering than boys. So we go from this nearly equal distribution to a bigger distribution like this. Now, the research is complicated by factors such as most of the research has tended to focus on males rather than females. So women are underrepresented in the research anyway, and that may affect what we think of as the true distribution. Women may have been less likely to be recruited for studies, or they may have been less likely to volunteer for studies. And they may be more likely to hide their stuttering because of societal pressures. And so we know that there is a difference. I just don't know what that difference actually would end up being if we could do a perfect scientific study on it.
See, and here is the head scratcher, sir. And so, my mom, she had a stutter, and in her teenage, years, she had gotten tired of it. It would anger her and frustrate her to no end. And so she told herself, I'm done with this. And she stopped. It just blows my entire brain. I don't know. And then she had, her mom also had a stutter. Hooking out. So how I acquired a mine is, I had a regular speech, all the way up to age 5. And then I was walking home from school. I was in kindergarten. And so our house was, at the end of a cul-de-sac. And so I was heading home, and there was a dog, a big white German shepherd. And it's in my head still. I can picture it. It's right there on the front, a yard. And so I turn because, hello, it is a dog. And then it looks at me, and then it chases me down to my house. And so at the halfway point, it jumped on me. And so my head hit the concrete sidewalk. And that is all that I can, recall. So the crazy thing is, a whole year after it, I could not speak. I had zero speech. However, when I did speak, I had a severe stutter. And I'm talking 100% all blocks, and whatnot. And so my parents had put me into speech therapy. And so I've had 20 years of speech a therapy. And then I had also branched out into hypnotherapy, which is wonderful because I have got to tell you, sir, that was the one time where my entire body was at rest. And people who stutter, all of their organs, the whole day are all tensed up. And then at the end of the day, you're just exhausted. You are drained, mentally and, physically. And so I don't know if I was destined to have it. And it just hadn't switched on, or did the dog attack, hit that switch and turned it on, for me. And so that is how I have my stutter. So just, FYI.
Yeah, it's one of those really interesting things. I've heard similar kinds of stories from people where maybe it wasn't, that particular a dog chasing but people who didn't stutter, even whether they have family history or not, and an event happens. And that's when they pin in time when the stuttering started. And, the truth of the matter is we have, we can't do a controlled study where we could go back and say, would you have started had it not been for that? We just don't know. But I have heard many people describe events like that may be triggers of latent stuttering or really, who knows? I mean, as a scientist, I've got to be open to all sorts of things that I don't understand. We tried our best to explain them. We do know that most of the time when we see the onset of stuttering, when there is a family history, we presume that it probably would have happened anyway. But we don't actually know. If it weren't that trigger, it might be some other trigger. Is it possible that somebody could have no trigger? Well, absolutely, because we know that there's plenty of people who are children of people who stutter who don't actually stutter. So they've still got that genetic predisposition of some sort, yet it isn't turned on in them. So yeah, we have so much more to learn about what constellation of factors come together to say, all right, yep, it's going to happen here, or nope, not there, or it's going to happen for a while and then not, because many people go through a period of stuttering and then that stuttering subsides. So we have quite a bit more to learn. And in my opinion, it's only by gathering the stories from individuals like yourself that we'll be able to have the data that we need
Wow.
To be able to learn about that. So,
see, sir,
yeah.
And here's the crazy part. I am a voice actor. And so, okay, so hold on. This is a huge head scratcher. Okay, so, when I am given a script, okay, I go over it, I memorize it, and then I hit the record button. And I kid you not, sir, when I hit that button, I am not Pedro. I am a specific person who has a script here,
Mhm.
and I do not stutter. A switch,
Yeah.
it goes off in my head. I do the whole thing. And then after I hit stop, I'm back to Pedro. And when I tell you, a bunch of directors and producers, their eyes are wide open, because I cannot do a cold read to save my life, sir. I cannot. I block, I repeat. It's horrible. But when I hit record, it just, everything just, I don't know how to put it into words, but it's a huge head scratcher. So just, yeah.
Yeah. It's another one of those interesting mysteries that we have about stuttering. There are quite a few like that we really can't explain them yet. We have a lot of science yet to uncover related to this, but there are some very interesting stories of actors and actresses who say that one of the reasons they got into the field is because when they were playing a character like that, it didn't even occur to them that they might stutter. It was just gone. That feeling, that sense, that impending sense that there's going to be a word that won't come out. It's just gone. And so, many people have reported that that's what drove them into acting. Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of cool. I mean, it is what it is. Okay, now, and so, okay, I want to talk about a speech, therapy. And so, so I was in it in 1975, many, 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 many moons ago. And so the, a therapist had, told me that it was her job to have me talk like everybody else. So in my head, I was like, oh, I'm broken. I'm damaged. I have to be, affixed. So how has speech therapy, uh, um, evolved?
Yeah, it's a great, great question because in some ways it really hasn't. We face a significant challenge where the vast majority of speech and language therapists really don't get stuttering. It's not an area that they feel well prepared in. And even when you do surveys and you ask them, what disorder areas do you like to work with? Stuttering ranks last among all the conditions in the field. Clinicians just don't feel comfortable. They don't feel confident. They don't feel ready to work in this area. And so what that means is that sadly, even today, sometime since your initial experiences, kids are still getting that same message. That's not what we want. That's not what specialists do. That's not where the field of experts is heading. But sadly, it is what many still get, and it's a significant problem that specialists like me that we face trying to turn that around. What an expert would say, even there's confusion because there are different camps, like in any field. There's some people who say that this approach to therapy is better. There's some people who say that that approach to therapy is better. You get 5 experts in a room, you're going to get 7 different opinions. And so there is that confusion that's layered on as well. But what I would like to see when a young man comes into therapy and is told by the clinician, I'm going to try to help you. I would like to see a world in which the child did not feel broken and did not feel a need to be fixed. I would like to see a world in which we could view stuttering as one of the many ways that human beings can talk, an acceptable difference, a variation in communication. Well, so we talk about that. We try to publish papers and articles to tell other clinicians, let's view stuttering differently. Let's view stuttering not as a disorder that needs to be remediated, but as a variation that can be embraced and accepted and supported. This message is uncomfortable for many clinicians. Some love it. Some feel like, yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly what we need to do. We can help kids not feel like there's something broken about them. But others can be very upset by this. They feel like, well, if stuttering is okay, then, what's our role? What are we supposed to do? And there's still plenty for us to do. And I'll talk about that in just a second here. There's still a ton we can do to help. But we don't have to view our job as fixing something that's not broken. We can help people learn to handle something that is different. So my colleague Nina Reeves, she developed this phrase, coined this term some years ago now, called this. We say stuttering is verbal diversity. It's just a different way of talking. And that idea has resonated with some. It's grated on others. Like any field, we have differences of opinion. But what I would love is for somebody to come into therapy and for the clinician to be able to say, you're not broken. Your brain handles speech and language differently, and that's okay. My job is to help you be able to say what you want to say so that you can communicate in a way that you feel good about. We want it to be natural. We want it to be spontaneous. We want it to be enjoyable. comfortable, authentic. I want you to be able to be you. And yes, you'll be disfluent. That's okay. That's the nature of your speech. But we want to make sure that you know how to navigate that in a world that can be pretty tough on people who are different. We certainly see that in society right now. We see a backlash toward what I thought was some progress toward accepting differences. And we want to help prepare our students to live in a world that may not be terribly understanding of the fact that neurologically they're different. That's what I would like to have happen. How often does it happen? Not as much as we would like. But, some days I feel like we make some progress in educating people, especially clinicians, about stuttering. Some days I feel like, there's a clinician there who's reaffirming a child's self-identity and self-worth rather than inadvertently, I'm not criticizing, well, I am kind of criticizing the clinicians, inadvertently tearing down their self-esteem, building up a child's self-esteem, because they're going to need it. The rest of the world is going to tear it down. Yeah, I don't want us to be part of that.
Oh, yes, sir. Awesome. 100%. Because I mean, oof. I had, um, 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 appreciated later in life in speech, a therapy. I had also learned um, how to improve my mental health. Cause I mean, I don't have to tell you, I mean, I have, been through hell and back, and then all of the darkness. I mean, years and decades of darkness. However, I'm at the a tail end of my speech, therapy. We had focused on that. And so when I tell you, it was so helpful. I mean, because it helped me to get pulled out of a dark place. And I mean, I'm in there for years and years and years. And so I'm just, yeah.
Now, one of the things that I really wish we could help kids who stutter with is to have them not have to go through that, if at all possible, right? If we could find a way to build up self-esteem from minute one. And this is what we focus on in therapy, even with the little 2 and 3-year-olds, helping them know that they're okay so that they might be saved from that. The biggest gift we could give to any child is self-confidence and self-esteem and self-acceptance. To be able to say, yeah, I'm different. That's okay. And I'm okay.
Yes. Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. All right. And so I want to talk about school with having a stutter, because I mean, I am in a bunch of groups on Reddit and Facebook and and I mean, I read posts that it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. And I mean, it just makes me cry. I talk about, school, experiences, in with having a stutter.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Sadly, kids who stutter are very likely to be bullied by other kids when they're in school. Sadly, kids who stutter face their own self-doubts in school because so much of school is focused on verbal performance, reading aloud, giving book reports, reciting poetry, acting, all of the various things, asking someone out. There's all these different pressures on kids. And so the school age years can be extremely difficult. And it's a time when a child's self-image is still developing. So they're trying to develop a healthy self-image in the context of a society and their own mind that could well be working against them at that point. So let me take bullying first. Like I mentioned, kids who stutter are very likely to be bullied. There's been quite a bit of research on this. Kids who stutter are more likely to be bullied than kids with other communication differences. And of course, kids with communication issues are more likely to be bullied than the general population anyway. So it's up there, and it's a lot. One retrospective study showed that fully 3/4 of adults who stutter reported that their school age bullying experiences were so severe that they interfered with their schoolwork. Fully 3/4 of adults looked back and said that it got in the way. It wasn't just an occasional somebody saying something. It wasn't somebody being, just one or two people being unkind. It was a pervasive challenge. And because of the unique peculiarities of stuttering, when you get picked on, it's very hard to respond because you want to say something to the person in that moment. You want to, A, find the magic words to make it stop, and B, get those words out. And because of the fear, because of the shame, because of the tension, it's just even that much harder to communicate in that moment. So it takes a problem that exists and it compounds it. Yeah. So it's a bad situation. Now, fortunately, there's also been a lot of research done on what we can do to diminish bullying that kids who stutter experience. And indeed, there are ways to help kids who stutter experience less bullying and experience less impact from the bullying if it does happen. Two friends of mine, one named Bill Murphy, another named Bob Queasel, developed quite a bit of material for helping kids in the school age years who experience bullying. And those materials have been used quite a bit. They're published in a therapy program that I mentioned Nina Reeves before. Nina Reeves and I joined them for that. And clinicians use it as a way of helping to not only diminish the bullying, but also help the child become more resilient to it. And it helps. It does. It doesn't take the problem away, unfortunately. Kids are still tough. Couldn't pay me to go back to school, and I don't stutter, but there's just no way. But people do come through it, and there is reason for optimism based on the research.
Sir, and I mean, I have to tell you, I spent 80% of my school years from a kindergarten all the way up to the 12th grade. And I also did it in college. I also did it in the corporate world. If I had to read out loud, which I only did that one time, and you don't ever forget that type of trauma. And so, every time that I had to read out aloud, I would raise my hand and go to the restroom. And so I would hang out in a stall. I mean, I did that for years and years and years. And back in those days, we didn't have cell phones. I brought a book and just read in the stall, and so, I mean, it was horrible, but later on, I learned how to handle that in a positive way. And so, but I mean, school was rough. School was horrible. I ate lunch all by myself. I ate in the janitor's closet. I would have my lunch because of the bullies. And then also, no one had wanted to hang out with a kid who would spit and sputter and stutter. And so it's like, well, okay, so what happened? I just have to move on. I just have to move on. And so, but yeah, school was just horrible. But yeah, I would never go back.
No.
You couldn't pay me, sir. You could not pay me, no.
Exactly. Okay,
so here is a powerful question. I mean, I ask everybody, and I mean, I get powerful answers. So, do you have any advice for parents, teachers, and other MSLPs in regards to stuttering?
Oh, do I ever? Lots and lots. So I had to tell you, one of the things that I do in addition to working as a professor, which gives me the opportunity to spout off my ideas, is I co-own a publishing company with Nina Reeves, and that gives us the opportunity to spout off our ideas. And we have booklets for parents and booklets for teachers and books for speech language pathologists to try to help educate them about stuttering, because there are some key messages that we want them to know. See, I hold, even though I presented sort of a negative view about the state of the therapy that many people get, I also at the same time hold a tremendous optimism about the future for helping people who stutter. I think that there's so much good that therapists and caregivers can do. They're not always doing it, but as we sit here today, but there's so much that we can do if we could only understand the experience of stuttering. Right. So one of the most important facts, the pieces of advice that I want teachers to know, that I want parents to know, that I want clinicians to know is the way I phrase it is stuttering is more than just stuttering. And what I mean by that is the life experience of stuttering, living with a stutter, is about much more than just the speech behavior. Yeah, that's the part that observers see. That's the part that the parents see and the teachers see. Oh yeah, you stuttered there, you stuttered there. That's the least important part of the issue for the person living with it. And what I want people to do is shift their attention from here, to the whole person. And that is recognize the impact that stuttering has on people's lives, the fear, the shame, the anxiety, the frustration, the isolation, the loneliness, the anger, and focus on those. Recognize the difficulties in communicating, asking someone out, telling your name, telling your phone number, telling your address, advocating for yourself in the classroom or in the workplace, when you're at the hospital because you're not feeling well, explaining how you're feeling. Focus on the impact that it can have on a person's quality of life, because people who stutter aren't always living the life they wish they could live. They can get to that point, but very often early on, they're not. And our job as parents, as teachers, as caregivers, as clinicians is to help them get to that point where they can communicate freely and effortlessly. And yeah, they'll stutter, but who cares? They're communicating so that they can live the life they want to live. That's the message that I want everybody to know. And it begins by that broader view of what stuttering is. That's one thing. And I like to present that as a message of tremendous optimism, because very often you'll see people, understandably, focus on the negative side. Things that people who stutter can't do, the problems they have. And indeed, those are real. I'm not diminishing those in any way, shape, or form. But I want to say those are real. What can we do to help people cope with those effectively so that stuttering no longer gets in their way? And we can do that. That's probably the biggest message that I want them to have. Because when they know that, for caregivers, it helps to bring a little hope back into their hearts, because they feel, they want to do the right thing. They just don't know what to do. And then for teachers, they think, oh, the child has to be fluent in order to succeed in the world. And we want them to understand that, no, that's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. And for speech language pathologists, I could go on and on about them, but we want them to know how to help and not hinder or harm.
You just hit some awesome points. And I am also, taking notes, sir, because you are #awesome. And so, so I love to educate. Let's raise awareness. Please do not tell us to slow down. Do not tell us to sing it to you, because we're not going to do that. Because, I've heard it all, sir. Believe me, I am 54 years old. I've heard it all. And so no, I am now at a point in my life. It will come out. It may take me some time, but it will come out. And so, you will just have to show me a little patience, a little grace, and just let me do what I'm trying to do. And it's all I ask.
It's a matter of respect as well, of people, because you have just as much right in a conversation to take the time that you need as your conversational partner does. But too often people who stutter, because of their history, because of the bad experiences they've had in society, they cede their right over to the other person. You choose how fast this conversation is going to go. And that's not fair to them. They have just as much right to say, hey, I'm going to choose how fast the conversation is going to go. And, when it comes down to it, if you took a stopwatch and you timed how much longer it takes, it's not that much longer. People could wait, even in today's fast-paced society and all of that. And if you can't, then you need to reevaluate. You need to think about the respect that you're showing to people. And I have told listeners that quite bluntly at times when I'm in my advocate mode, an ally advocate, to say, hey, wait a minute. You're not being respectful. And it doesn't take that much. It's just listen to people. Listen to people.
And I mean, my stutter, I tell people, it is my superpower. And here is why. It shows me literally who people truly are. If you are worthy of my time and my space. And when I tell people that, it just kind of, because I cannot tell you how many conversations that I have been in public. I have a block. And when I have a block, sir, my eyes close. I do not take in oxygen. And twice I passed out on the sidewalk in the grass. So hopefully that will not happen again. But I've had people who will look at their watch and then walk away when I'm having a block and my eyes are closed, because when I reopen my eyes, I'm still thinking he's still there. We're having a conversation and he's gone. And it's like, well, you are not worthy of Pedro's time. So I am just going to keep on walking on and do my breathing, because it is what it is.
Yeah. And that's such a hard experience for young people. It takes us a while as humans to develop that confidence. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Many times my students, they come in and they say, I've got to prove to that other person that they need to wait for me. And I say, no, let's turn that around. They should be proving to you that they're worth your effort. And it's not easy. It takes you a little extra effort to talk. Is it worth expending it on that person? And it's a different way of looking at it. And, if we could empower people to take the right that's theirs, it's not being unfair. It's rebalancing. And yeah.
Oh, all right, sir. Awesome. Okay, now, so I want to switch gears and talk about the workplace, specifically discrimination. Ooh, because I hear it from everybody. I did not get hired, because of my stutter, because I cannot talk on the phone or talk to people. What has been your experience in this arena?
Indeed. I've worked with many, many people who stutter who have described clear examples of discrimination. Now, we all know, yes, it's not legal. Stuttering is protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So your U.S. listeners, have that legislation in their support. And some other countries, not all certainly, have similar kinds of protective legislation. So yes, on the surface, it's not supposed to happen. Everybody knows it happens. And it's extraordinarily difficult to prove a claim of discrimination. Even if somebody would have to say on tape, oh, nobody uses tape, on digital recorder, I'm not hiring you because you stutter. There you go. Exactly. And even then, I bet they could get away with it. It's very difficult to prove. There's very little case law to go on to support. There's some. But yeah, people get passed over for promotions. They don't get hired in the first place. There's an interesting challenge that we're facing right now. And that is that increasingly companies are using automatic speech recognition systems for that first level of interview. You're not even talking to a human. You're recording some responses, and then an AI is going to decode those responses and judge them. They don't even go to a human then. It's not like a human is reading a transcript. They get judged for content, and then only some of those get passed on to a human, right? Well, that's a problem because speech recognition systems can't do a good job understanding stuttering. Stuttering is a pattern that speech recognition systems simply aren't well equipped to handle at this point. And so people are further discriminated against, not this time by humans, but by machines. Yeah. And so one of the research teams that I'm on, we're working specifically on this issue. We're in the midst of a 3-year NSF grant to develop a speech recognition system that can specifically understand stuttered speech. And our primary goal for starters, is to get this into these interview systems, so that people who stutter can at least get that fairness of that first level interview. Otherwise, they're not even in the interview pool. So we see it with Siri and Alexa, who don't understand you. Okay, Google doesn't understand you. We see it, your car, doesn't understand people who stutter. Phone trees, saying a few words while you're calling, they don't understand people who stutter. So there is not only this workplace discrimination from humans, from poorly trained HR to the digital workplace as well. And it's difficult to overcome. It really is. Just because although laws are there, those laws are difficult to work.
Okay, now I had not heard that before, sir, so my heart is palpitating just a little bit. I mean, that AI is now taking a placeholder in the hiring process because, I mean, I have a huge contention with all those speech activated devices where, they don't give you ample time to respond. I mean, you have to do it in
Correct.
0.002 seconds. And I need half an hour to just do my breathing and do my yoga, my meditation, my humming. I love to hum. It's really helpful. But I mean, so I now have anxiety of this new AI who is now taking over a job market, because I had not heard that. And so, okay, so here is another caveat in which I was doing. However, I was not cognizant of what I was doing. I would self discriminate, because back in the day, sir, I mean, in the 80s and the 90s, we had all of the job ads were in a newspaper. I mean, they had everything on there. And so, a 98% of all those must have excellent communication skills. So if you are talking to a 17-year-old, 18-year-old who has a severe stutter, I would have a red ink pen and I would have it all crossed out. And let me tell you, that newspaper, it looked like a bloodbath. However, I was only qualified, and this is a horrible part, but it's called survival. I had to eat. And so I could only do a data entry because there's no human interaction. They would hand me, a pile of work to put into a database. And that is what I did for 8 hours a day for years and years and years. And so in my head, it was called survival, but actually it was self-discrimination. Yeah,
absolutely. I worked with a fellow many years ago who was a foreman, construction foreman. So, very advanced job. He had a lot of skills, a master's degree, and was in charge of a work site, for example. Okay. It helped with the diagrams and had the engineering and the architecture background and all to be in charge of an entire work site, building site. And this was many, many years ago. So the time came along that all of a sudden they were going to have to carry these Motorola push-to-talk phones, walkie-talkies, basically. He said, nope, he wouldn't get, because he always talked to people one-on-one, and that was easier for him. Nope, not going to do that. And so rather than be able to face that fear at that point in his life, he just took a demotion down to the next level, from being in charge. And then that next level had to wear the walkie-talkies. And so he took another one down, and the next level, and he literally just kept working his way down the ranks that he had worked up through, actually, as a younger man, because of the fear. When he finally got to janitorial staff, that's when he reached out for therapy, because he just had to do something. Now, let me say, there's nothing wrong with being janitorial staff. That's just not what he wanted to do, and that's not what he was trained to do. And he was not happy with his life at that point. And what we did through that is we looked at, who's holding you back at this point? And he knew it was him. He just didn't know any other way at that point. Yeah. He did, by the way, work his way back up.
Good.
Once he learned to face the fear. Yeah.
I mean, because, so, sir, I got to tell you, I had a handheld radio when I was in the military. I was in the Air Force. And so everyone knew that Pedro was on the walkie-talkie if they heard heavy breathing.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent.
Oh, yes, it is. It's Airman Pena on the walkie-talkie. See, but I love humor now, because humor has helped me tremendously. And so now I can laugh at that now. But, sir, back in the day with all that heavy breathing, a lot of people had a lot of questions, but I survived, sir.
This is not the time or place, Airman. Yeah.
You hit it on the head, sir. And so it's like, but I got over it. I did it. I survived. And so, it's just.
I just this week wrote a letter of appeal for a young man whose heart is to be in the Air Force. His stuttering precluded him for now, but we're hoping that with an appeal, because I know plenty of very successful, people in all branches of the military who stutter.
So I had a hard time. However, I was pulled out by a colonel who handed me a piece of paper, and it had a list of 20 commands. And so he told me, he told me that if I can read all 20 and not stutter, you are in. And let me tell you, sir, I pulled on everything in my core, called on the Lord. And so in in my head, it's like, I'm not going back home. I'm not going back home. There is, a nothing at home. This is my only ticket, to get out of there and into a whole new world. And sir, I kid you not, I pulled on everything, and all 20 commands came out, one after another.
Excellent.
And so he told me, okay, you're in. I mean, it's just,
wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But no, I did it, sir, because it's called survival. I have to survive. My whole life, good Lord, I'm exhausted, sir. I'm exhausted. I mean, my whole life, I've had to survive my entire life. But all right. So, but I'm good now, sir. Okay. Now, so I want to talk about job interviewing, because I cannot hide this. There is,
nor should you.
The old Pedro, I mean, I would just spit and sputter and stutter in job interviews. And I mean, I would not get hired until I disclosed, this is what I have. This is what you're going to see. This is what you're going to hear. And so once I got that out, I could now focus on the questions. And I mean, it worked every single time. So talk about a job interviews, please.
Absolutely. I think you just nailed it. That's exactly what I teach people to do. You've got to disclose because it's going to be there. And what we want to do is turn stuttering from something mysterious, unexpected, unexplained to something matter of fact, mundane, absolutely expected. Well, of course I'm going to stutter during the interview. That's just the nature of my speech. And so let me tell you about it. Don't be afraid of it. You can even ask me questions about it, and off we go. And I'll tell you, like you said, it works every time. I have never had a client in therapy who did some disclosure, who didn't feel that the interview went better because of the disclosure. They don't get every job they apply for, certainly, but they feel that the interview goes better. It's hard, though, to do that first one. So one of the things that I've always encouraged my clients to do is to apply for a job that they really don't want, so that they can go and just practice their disclosure, just to get it out there. And after you get that first hurdle, then, because you don't want to save it for the job that you really, really, really want, because then the pressure is on. And unless you've practiced it, you're not going to be ready. I'm not much of a sports guy, but I use an analogy from sports. You think if a pitcher has learned a brand new pitch and it's a pitch he just can't wait to throw in the World Series, he doesn't save it for the World Series. He practices it in the bullpen. He practices it in batting practice. He practices it in the minor league games, in the exhibition games, in the preseason games. He practices it and practices it and practices it where the stakes are low, so that is so automatic for him and easy for him that by the time he gets to the high stakes, that's not where his energy is. It should be as effortless as possible. So I want people to have thought through the words they're going to use, the way they're going to describe do their disclosure, how detailed they're going to be, how they're going to handle questions, so that that part's a no-brainer. And then they can focus on the interview.
Oh, sir, look, I have a whole bunch of goosebumps. That is awesome. And I mean, sir, you hit it on the head. Practice. Any coach will tell you. I mean, I don't do any sports. I am Air Force. We're indoor people. We love air conditioning, heating. But anyway, I digress. But any coach will tell you, if you want to improve on anything, you have to practice, practice, practice. And I mean, I tell that to everybody. This is hard work. We have to work 1,000 times harder than everybody else because I have a stutter. I mean, it would take me 20 minutes to just do a 10-second voicemail. Everybody else, wham, bam, all done. No, half an hour or maybe longer, but I mean, I got to do what I got to do, and so, but I mean, practice. I mean, I cannot tell you, I preach that to everybody. I mean, if you want to improve, this is how you do it. And I mean, it is hard work, but at the end of the day, after you have done it, look what I did. Look what I did. And and it feels so good. It's a win. And after I have a win, I do a little happy dance and get me a hamburger. So it's all good.
You got to celebrate the victories.
Sir,
absolutely.
I mean,
right.
I don't care how small it is. Every single one, you need to celebrate it because look what I did. I mean, a person who has a stutter, look what I did. I mean, it's just, it makes you feel so good. Makes you feel so good.
Yeah.
All right, sir.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, now I want to talk about things we do every day, which, I call it ADLs. However, I know it. I mean, activities of a daily living, and that is talking on a telephone and going through a drive-through and ordering at a restaurant. So, can you expound on those, please?
Sure. Sadly, you hit the top three that people report are just so hard to do. Earlier in their journeys, people get to the point where these things are more comfortable for them, right? But early on, The telephone. I knew once upon a time people who wouldn't even be in the same room as a telephone. Now, of course, you've always got one with you. And I remember when cell phones were just, because I'm old, but just starting to become more common. And I had clients that says, "There's no way. I hate the phone. Why would I want to, have one follow me around? I always try to avoid them." These days, it's unavoidable. However, these days, you have an easier choice of whether or not to take the call. You can see who it is, see if it's somebody you know, see if it's spam. 99% of the time it is. And I know people who use text as a way of not having to face that fear constantly. And it's an interesting debate that one might have about, should you or shouldn't you text as a way of responding instead of, always being forward, always talking to prevent the fear. I'm not much of a hardliner on that. I'm really not. I mean, if everybody texts sometimes because they're just tired of having to talk, whether they stutter or not, right? I don't want people beating themselves up for using the technology. But if they're always texting as a way of hiding, and if they're always not putting themselves out there, then they're paying a price. Likewise, the drive-through. You have to yell out to this thing. Now, I know plenty of people who use their app to order in advance and then go pick up. But you gotta say thank you. There's people behind you, and in the restaurant, it's loud, so you got to speak up. And the server's at the end of the table. There's a group of 15 people, and you have to yell out over everybody, and then the stutter's there. So all of these things really hit on what is often a fear for people who stutter, and that is that openness of letting the world see, hey, when I talk, I'm going to stutter. The way we reduce that is through disclosure, like you talked about. If everybody at the table knows that you're going to stutter when you talk, well, then ordering across the table isn't that hard. It's hard to have the drive-through guy know. That's where we work on building up enough self-esteem that you just don't care what the drive-through guy thinks. I mean, I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure he's got all sorts of qualities, but I want my people to get to the point where they just don't care what his opinion of them is. It's very, very hard to do. And, on the phone, yeah, phones are tough. We're going to stutter on the phone. That's what we're going to do. I used to, back when I had a desk phone, right? And it had push buttons. It wasn't rotary. So, but and I put the phone. Yes, there we go. Oh, you got a rotary. There you go. Fantastic. Put that right on the desk in front of my clients, and we would use a Yellow Pages. Now, many of your readers won't know what a Yellow Pages is, but your viewers, an actual book like this with pages that were indeed yellow. We'd go through and we'd look for the local grocery chain, whatever the grocery store was, where there was going to be a bunch of them in town. And we would just start calling them one after the other, calling them, asking them what your hours are. Now, importantly, not doing this to practice being fluent, because that's just practicing hiding. People who stutter have plenty of practice practicing hiding, practicing stuttering openly. What time do you open? How late is the pharmacy open? Do you carry this product? Is Joe there? Anything, doesn't matter what we say, to test the waters to see if people actually care that much about stuttering. Most don't, though some do. There are jerks in the world, okay? But also being able to tolerate it for themselves. One time I had a fellow doing this. He was, when I was working with him, and he was in his early 60s at this point, and he hated his stutter. He was really struggling. He had been a professor at a major university and had some tough times with students and such, and had experienced some health problems as a result. And he hated his stutter. And so we started practicing this stuttering while asking the time, stuttering while calling the grocery store. And one day he had an assignment to do 10 calls. We were going to sit there together and do 10 calls to 10 different stores. Can you tell me how late you're open? What are simple, little, relatively light repetitions like that. And after he had done 3 of them, he turned to me and he said, these people on the phone, they don't care at all that I stutter when I ask them the time. I said, no, that appears to be true. They don't seem to care. He said, why do I care so much? Well, he had a lifetime history, but that was the key question.
Wow. I mean, because it hit me at, 40 years old. Why do I care? why do I care? Because I would expend so much energy, sir. I was a people pleaser because I did not have any friends. And so I would do anything to have a friend. And so I was a people pleaser. And I mean, it was exhausting until, you know, I had reached a point. Enough is enough. Pedro is awesome. I just have a stutter. I just have a stutter. I mean, I love Pedro, which I had never told myself that, sir, ever in my entire life until I turned, 40 years old. I said, Pedro, I love you. You're awesome. You just have a stutter. Let's move on. Who cares what people think? And I mean, sir, you hit it on the head. I mean, in my head, I mean, I cared what everybody thought of my stutter. And now I I don't even pay attention to it because I know that I am awesome. And so I know that, I mean, it's just, it has no impact on me because I know that I am awesome.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was huge. That was huge. But I mean, it took me 35 years to learn that.
Yeah.
But I did.
That's the challenge.
But I did. Okay. Yeah. Now, so I want to talk about what happened in COVID. In March of 2020, the whole world shut down. And so I was in a really awesome office. And so now I have to work from home with headset and a webcam. Sir, I spiraled. I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah.
I might lose my job. I have a mortgage and everything else. So, and then also having a mask. I mean, I had trouble before, but now it's like bump, bump, bump. And so I'll talk about that huge issue back in the day.
Yeah, it was, and to add to all the things that you said, people who don't stutter were freaking out. Everybody's freaking out, right? And so everybody's a little edgier too. Anyway, people who might have been more understanding of your stuttering were experiencing their own turmoils. And so they weren't very good allies at that point. But yeah, we're starting to learn about just what some of the impact, for example, of being on Zoom all day long is, where, normally you can look away a little bit, you can get a little break, you don't feel like people are observing you constantly, and being on like that is exhausting. People who found themselves at a place in their journey where they weren't ready to be scrutinized were being, magnified. You're taking up the whole screen. And it really made things quite a bit more difficult for many people. I know a few who thrived in it. I know a few people who stutter who were like, this is great. I don't have to leave the house. I'm going to text, I'm going to send emails and such. The mask, they can't see my lips quivering behind the mask. I'm never taking the mask off. But I think the majority of people that I know found it to be challenging, and in fact are still feeling some of those effects because it hits you hard, and you then all of a sudden, when your confidence is shaken, it's hard to build it back up. So yeah, they tell us these days, if you have the choice, turn off the self view on your Zoom so you're not looking at yourself, and take breaks and don't use the whole screen. It's still hard.
Sir, it is. And so how I coped, I use humor. I love humor. And so I have a great ice breaker because I am a trainer. And so I teach via PowerPoint. And so, I mean, all those people in a row, another row. And so how I would handle it is, hi, good morning. I'm Pedro Pena. I will be your trainer for today. And then also I have a speech impairment. I have a stutter. It is not your internet connection. It is Pedro having a block. Here is the cool part. All of their anxiousness, everything came all the way down. I got it out there, and now I'll do my thing. And yes, I blocked, I repeated. However, I am at a point where I will get it out. However, if I don't, it's okay to help out Pedro. It's okay. And believe me, I mean, I got the help. I got the help. And so, because we are all different in our, journeys. But I mean, it helped me out a great deal because on Zoom, I mean, it was just stressful. And those who were on Zoom who still had a mask, it was even more stressful.
They're this big, and now you can only see this much of them. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'm telling you, it's just interesting.
Agreed,
so yes, sir.
agreed.
All right, sir. So I want to talk about alcohol. Now I have spoken to over 143 people from all over the world, and if alcohol is involved, I mean, but it's split right down the middle. It helps,
Exactly.
and then it hinders.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
Can you please talk about that?
Sure. We used to tease in graduate school, if you had to do a little research project, everybody wanted to volunteer for the What Happens to Stuttering When You Drink project. Yeah. Because indeed it's half and half. That's been my experience as well. I used to actually ask people that in my diagnostic assessments because it tells you a little something about how the person is coping with their stuttering. Some people cope by trying to control their speech and trying to maybe use some fluency enhancing speaking skills and trying to keep everything under control so that their stutter doesn't become as apparent. And you give them alcohol and they lose that control. So those are the ones that say, oh, it makes it so much worse. I don't want to do that. Whereas other people are withholding themselves, right? And they're getting more in their own way. And so when their inhibitions are loosened, they speak more freely and they find that it's easier for them. And so I actually get a sense for about how they're handling stuttering by seeing what happens to them. And then it gives us a clue. So for the person who's holding themselves back, we look at other ways for them to let go than substances. And for the people who are controlling, we work on other ways to help them not feel the need to control everything so much. Now, all that said, I have worked with many people who have faced substance abuse issues. And so I handle the issue as delicately as I can. But I've known people who found it to help, who sought it more than was healthy for them. I've actually also known people who found that it made talking harder, but it still gave them some emotional relief and they went down a path they didn't want to go to. So it's a difficult issue.
Yes. And see, for me, 2 drinks and that's it. I don't stutter anymore. I just go and just have an awesome time. So, yeah, it's just, it's interesting. It's a head scratcher. Okay. Now I want to talk about such a hot topic in the community. And when I say, it's in, on Facebook and Reddit, it's a hot topic. So I want to talk about secondaries, what I call a tool, a tip, a trick, others call a crutch. So I will do whatever I need to do to get the word out. And it was all about survival. So I would use accents and tap my head, tap my foot. I would have my eyes closed, arms go all over the place. I did what I had to do to get things out. That's just Pedro because he had to survive. So let's talk about secondaries.
Indeed, there are multiple opinions on this. So the first thing I'd want to say is different people are different. And I know that seems like such a basic thing to say, but it kind of gets lost in these debates on the internet. We'll talk later about, internet resources. And I'll give you the little heads up that I am personally not allowed to have social media accounts. I'm not allowed to go on social media. I used to be very active on all of this speech related Facebook and Reddit and all that. But I am just the wrong personality for all that. I'm that guy who's like, somebody's wrong. I can't have that. And so my wife and my business partner, Nina, recently did an intervention and they deleted all my social media. I don't even have LinkedIn, because I'm just the wrong personality. But I think that one of the things we see in those discussions is that people forget that just because something worked for them doesn't mean it's going to work that way for other people. Just because they have a certain value system that leads them in this direction doesn't mean that others might not have a value system that leads them in another direction. And so we see people taking the exact same behavior. And one person says it's a great thing, it helps me, and another person thinking it's the worst evil ever to befall people who stutter. And so what I do is I ask people about their value systems. What is it that's important to you when you communicate? And some people are going to say, I just want to get the word out. However it comes out, it doesn't matter to me. And for them, I'm not going to work on reducing secondaries because that's not where their values are. Their values are get it out by hook or by crook and just get it out. And that's great. And they deserve just as much praise as the person who says, I want to get it out this way. And that's cool too. And so they deserve praise too, right? And so I try to understand what the value system is. And I think if on the internet we were a little bit better at understanding that people have different value systems and that they can be equally valid, then we could reduce some of these debates, because people are different. Different people want different things, and that's okay. It's great.
So that is an awesome, awesome answer. Woo-hoo. I am just putting down all your golden nuggets. Those are so cool. So cool. Okay, now, so you are the right person to ask this to because, I mean, this is, I mean, from all over the world. I mean, I am asked this, but we're all different. We're all different. So I want to ask you this. So are there any strategies or techniques that help people to communicate more effectively?
Yes, indeed. Great question. So you already answered that it's going to be different for different people, right? Different people are going to resonate with different kinds of strategies. But that's great. The good news is that there's a whole bunch of different strategies. And so what I think about in the early days of getting to know somebody in therapy is I'm not just trying different strategies to see what makes them sound more fluent. We're talking about different ways of communicating to see which one resonates with them, that they feel good about, that they feel is authentic for them, that they feel is natural for them. See, normal speech for people who stutter is stuttered speech. And if we start with that as the foundation, then we can talk about, all right, given that your speech is going to have some stuttering in it, that's just what's normal for your brain. Let's talk about how you'd like that to be. How would you like it to come out? And some people's value systems will say, I know that, but I want it to be fluent anyway, as fluent as I can make it. Well, for them, we'll work on some speaking skills. And other people say, no, you know what? I want to make sure that I pick the exact word that I meant. I don't care if that word is stuttered or not. Well, for them, we're going to work on diminishing the fear that sometimes prevents them from picking the word that they really wanted to say. They're okay with stuttering on it. They just felt fear. So yes, there are a whole bunch of different speaking strategies and not just speaking, but also coping strategies that can help people communicate effectively. And the job of somebody like me is to know a whole bunch of those and then explore with the person what might be a match for them at this point in their life. They may use different ones later. They may have used different ones before. And in fact, that's quite common. But when people get into a place in their life where they want, their value directs them to, they want to be able to communicate in a certain way, well, then that's what I want to do, is give them the tools to do that.
Oh, sir, 100%. Because I read where, I wish there was a magic pill, to take it all away. And I mean, I tried everything. I even tried, a voodoo. I paid for voodoo because, in my 20s, I was tired of it. And so here is a woman who had told me that if I paid her, it would be all cured by her voodoo. And so I tried it and it did not work out. And so, but I mean, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard work, but
Mhm.
we just have to keep at it. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah, unfortunately, we haven't yet found a simple trick that lasts, right? There are some fairly simple tricks that can give apparent fluency for a time. And some people are satisfied with those and they want those, and that's fine. I don't want to, it's not to me to judge whether that's appropriate for them, right? But we haven't found one that lasts. And so that's, yeah, people would like that. And I don't blame them. Some people would like that. Other people wouldn't trade it for the world. And I don't want to diminish their reality either.
exactly, sir. Awesome. I thank you for that. All right. So I want to talk about, uh, p- uh, p- phases in fluency, because I will have days where everything comes out, and then I'll have days where nothing comes out. And so I get asked this from all over the world. So if you could please expound on this extremely important topic.
It is indeed an extreme. This is my favorite topic. Okay, so I've got a whole bunch, but this was my favorite. So remember, I said a while ago, you asked, what is the thing that I wanted everybody to know about? And I said, stuttering is more than just stuttering. Okay, that's the first thing that I want people to know about. The second most important thing that I want people to know about is that stuttering varies. Because it does for everybody. People stutter more some days and less other days, more in some situations, less in other situations, more in the same situation on one day than in that same situation on another day. It's not random. So we can't just give in and say, oh, well, it's fate. But it's not easily predictable. My other federal grant, I'm involved in two federal grants. One, the NSF grant focused on speech recognition. The other one, my NIH grant, is focused on the variability of stuttering, understanding why it happens, when it happens, the degree to which it happens, and are there some situations that make that variability more, some situations to make it less? Are there some people who are more prone to variability than others? The variability is tough because it affects every aspect of life. You just can't count on when the stutter is going to be there. In some weird way, people would be better off if they truly did know they were going to stutter on a certain word every time they used it, because then they could count on it at least. But even a word that you stutter on 90% of the time, there's still that 10% where, hey, what happened there? Why can't I do more of that? Or the reverse. You have a word that you never worry about. Yeah, you say it all the time. You never worry about it, and boom, comes out of nowhere and just gets you. And it hits you when you're feeling vulnerable. A study that one of my former doc students and I, Seth Tishner and I did, looked at what was most frustrating about stuttering. What do people who stutter feel most frustrated about? And the second most common answer was variability, that it changes. The first most common answer, the thing that was most frustrating to our sample, the stuttering itself, just the fact that they stuttered. So given the fact that people stutter, the thing that bugs them the most is that variability. And here's what we need to learn about that. It's not people's fault that stuttering varies. It's just the nature of this particular beast. It's going to be there sometimes. It's going to not be there other times. And the more that people can learn to ride those waves rather than fighting them, the more they can take that up and down and just kind of look at it as, oh, isn't that interesting? Look at that. Hey, today's one of those stuttery days. Cool. Or, hey, look at that. Today's one of those less stuttery days. Cool. And to take it with that degree of equanimity, that reduces the burden, that reduces the impact that variability has.
See, and oh my gosh, that is so awesome, because you just hit it right on the head. I'm interviewed all types of awesome individuals. And so there is a particular group, the bodybuilders and a fitness people whom I've had on my podcast. And I kid you not, they would, you know, you know, uh, tell me if I get 8 hours of rest and then I go and exercise and do this and that, and the weights, and the running and da 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 da, it helps out the, other speech tremendously. And it's like, oh, well, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I don't have any answers because I don't do anything outdoors. So,
Yeah. Well, they have indoor gyms, so I'm told. I've never been in one.
yes, sir,
But
that's a no. Okay.
yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting though, because people develop their routines around it,
yeah.
right? But even doing that, and this is not to diminish their success at all. I don't take anything away from that because that's what works for them. But there are also people who say, yeah, and today I'm just going to stutter more. Right. And they don't put that effort into trying to control it. There's a certain element of trying to control the uncontrollable that does feel frustrating, because what if you do all the right things and yet you still have a stuttery day? You know, you did doubt yourself. I don't want self-worth and self-comfort to be in the hands of something as capricious as stuttering. I want people to be able to feel that they're awesome if they stutter and they're awesome if they don't stutter on a given day.
Sir, 100%. So here's another hot topic. Woo, sir. When I raise this, woo, you talk about, it's a really hot topic all over the world. So I would ask everybody on my podcast, all of the answers are split right down the middle. So I want to just ask you this question. So do people like for others to help finish their sentences? Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Yeah. I know a lot of no's on that one. And I know a few yeses on that one. What it depends the most in my mind on where they are in their journey, right? And how in control they themselves feel. So people who are feeling like they just don't know what to do when they're in a block, people who are feeling helpless and who are feeling disconnected in that moment, they're thrilled to have a lifeline thrown to them. Just get me the heck out of this. And by whatever means, and if somebody fills in a word, great. I know others, it just gets them so angry because what if somebody fills in the wrong word? And too often we do, right? So listeners should listen. It's right there in the name. Listeners should listen. But if they know a person well enough and that person says, you can fill in my words when you can tell that I'm stuck, we can play 20 questions and it won't bother me. That's great. But I remember a time I still do, but I had members of my local stuttering self-help group come in to talk to my class. And I couldn't pay them because it's not really allowed, but I could take them out to dinner before the class. It was an evening class. So one time I was out with a fellow, taking him to, that time it was lunch before he came to speak to my class. And he stuttered notably. He was also getting up there in years. So he moved a little bit more slowly than he had once upon a time. And the server came over at this place that I went to all the time. And this fella says, I would like this. Then he gets into a prolongation there on the S. And what he really wanted was a soup, because he loved the soup at this place. It was a good soup. So yeah, I wanted this, but soup wasn't going to come in that immediate moment. And the server, trying to be helpful, but she didn't know him. She didn't have permission to do this. She jumped right in. Soup? You want soup? And he said, salad. He didn't want the salad, but he wanted his dignity. He wanted his autonomy. And so listeners should listen. But then if somebody wants some help and they tell you that, fine then, but it should come from them.
I mean, because it is, in my head, it is always appropriate to ask. Always appropriate because,
Mm-hmm.
It's respect. Awesome, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, so how can people who stutter handle the bad days? Because we have more bad days than good days.
Yeah. So there's two thoughts I have on this. One is aspirational, a wish, and the other is practical. The aspirational wish is that I wish that people would be able to get to the point in their life where the quality of their day wasn't determined by their fluency. So a stuttery day isn't necessarily a bad day. It's just a stuttery day, right? It's very common, though. People have good days and bad days. I wish we could separate that out and have good days and bad days, because some days your boss is annoying or some days you get in a car accident. That's a bad day, but have that be separated from whether or not you stutter. That's my aspirational wish, is that people could get to that. And I know plenty of people who've gotten to that, right? Where they can have a day where they stutter like crazy, but it was a great, great day. And they judge it based on a different parameter. But until they get to that point, riding those waves is the hardest thing, but the most important thing. Because just as stuttering goes up sometimes, it's going to go down sometimes. And what I want people to do is not get too worked up about those days when it's more. But at the same time, we have to not get too excited about those days when it's less, too. Woohoo, it's done. I don't stutter anymore. No, wait till tomorrow, right? And try to keep in that middle ground. So when I think about goals that we might set in therapy or in self-help, moderation can help, right? We never really shoot for perfect fluency in therapy. We never really shoot for perfect stuttering in therapy. It's going to be, I'm going to react to the situations that the day brings me, because there's so many factors influencing whether or how much a person might stutter. I don't want them dependent on that. So you ride it. Use it. And then we think about practically, all right, a day when you feel like you're just not going to stutter as much that day. That is a terrific day to maybe practice, if you use them, some speaking skills, because it's going to be easier to practice on those days. A day when you're having more stuttering, well, if you use it, it's a terrific day to practice some self-disclosure. And so you work with what it gives you.
How cool. Awesome, sir. That was an awesome answer. Woo. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, so here is a head scratcher. You know, I ask everybody, it's half and half. It's half and half. It's just interesting. So, when we are alone, people who stutter, and I did use those 3 letters. I apologize. So, so when people who stutter are alone, do they speak without stuttering?
Yeah. And so there's been research on this for years. Person who's interested in this work right now, Dr. Eric Jackson from NYU. Yeah, it seems that when people who stutter are by themselves, they don't stutter much, if at all. They don't stutter much, if at all. Likewise, you'll hear people report they don't stutter when they're speaking to a baby. They don't stutter when they're speaking to their dog. In situations where the social evaluation pressure is really low. If people are speaking by themselves, but they think that they might be heard, like if it's being recorded or something, well, then the stuttering might creep back in. So there's something about that social, emotional, social cognitive pressure that's put on. So why is that? Because we look at that and we say, well, all right, so the system works, right? But the system gets derailed easily. The system is not drastically different from that of a non-stutterer, but it gets derailed more easily. So there's an important social pressure component to understanding when people will stutter.
So I am of the other way. I still block. I still repeat. And I mean,
I know people like that too. Yep.
It is what it is. It is what it is. So yes, sir. All right.
So it's one of those funny things where people say they don't stutter as much when they sing, right? And people will always ask about that. But I know plenty of people who stutter when they sing.
Head scratcher. Yes, sir. Interesting. Interesting is a word of the day. Interesting. Okay. So is stuttering, a worse when people are tired or stressed?
So this is one that tends to be more consistently true across people, that more people than not experience more difficulty when they're tired or when they're stressed. There's still a little difference, though, because sometimes when people are holding themselves in and they're avoiding and they're changing words and stuff, and they're causing more difficulty for themselves than the stutter would have. Those folks, when they're too tired to do all that crazy stuff, they may find it easier to communicate, but they still have so much fear that it's hard for them to take that step and do it intentionally, right? But many people, no matter what it is, if you're like me, if you're a clumsy person, I bump into more stuff when I'm tired. Right. And people just experience more difficult, especially though controllers, people who are trying to keep their speech under wraps and get it just so. Boy, being tired, being distracted, being frustrated, being stressed, those things can make it more difficult to multitask and to try to think about what you're saying and how you're saying it all at the same time.
Interesting, sir. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. So here is a long one. So is it common for people to encounter a situation where they are unable to say their name and the other person asks if they forgot their name? How might they respond?
So a right hook is probably not the right answer in this situation. However, it's an understandable desire. Yeah, listeners think they're witty. Oh, would you forget your name? Yeah, are you trying to pick one? Or you'll hear people say just the stupidest things, and they think they're they're making points. That stuff belonged in grade school, and it didn't even belong there, right? But yeah, I hear it all the time. People just say the silliest things, thinking they're witty. The best way to handle it when a person is ready is say, no, actually, I'm just stuttering right now. Of course, I know my name. It's just that that's a really hard word to get out. In fact, one of the reasons it's hard to get my name out is because idiots like you keep interrupting me, asking if I forgot my name. And I'm more busy worrying about if that's going to happen than I am thinking about how I'm going to get my name out. Right. A little honesty, a little assertiveness, appropriate assertiveness, and a little self-disclosure right there. So, yeah, it's just my stutter. My stutter's real hard on my name. I know people who've tried changing their name and they get a little respite until the stutter catches up with them and they start stuttering on their new name.
Yes. So I had a guest. He's from the UK, and so um um he, he worked in sales, and so he could not say his a name. So his boss had told him to change his name. He changed his name. And the rest is history. So it's like, I cannot change my name because, my dad, God rest his soul, he would not like that. So no, I will keep my name. Thank you.
No.
Yes.
And all the superheroes, they all have names that first and last name start with the same letter.
Yeah.
So you really don't, Pedro Pena, you don't want to change your name.
Exactly.
That's a superhero name. So,
I thank you, sir, for that. I feel so good. Thank you. Okay, so here is another hot one. So how do you feel about the representation of people who stutter in the media, in the movies?
Yeah, it's abysmal. It's abysmal, and it contributes to societal stigma. And it causes people to think that it's okay to joke about stuttering. There are some shining examples. There are some good examples out there these days where stuttering is represented, but not the point of the character. Right. But too often stuttering's been used as a device, as a gimmick, to show that the person's weak or evil or, whatever. And you could just name a dozen. Without even thinking, you could name a dozen examples where people who stutter are portrayed inappropriately. And the stutter is used as a device, as a sign that there's something wrong with the person. I can think of a handful of examples where the person just happened to stutter. And then it was just a characteristic and great, no big deal, because that's representation. I would like to see if there's a 1% prevalence of stuttering in society, I'd like to see 1% of the people out there portrayed as stuttering. Yeah, we don't hit anywhere near that degree of representation, but that would be appropriate. And we have a long way to go on that. I direct my clients and my students to the good examples. I direct my clients when they're ready to the bad examples because they need to be able to face and overcome that aspect of the societal stigma.
And there is a lot of stigma. Because I don't have to tell you, when in voice acting, there is a lot of rejection. However, I tell everybody I'm used to rejection. It's my BFF. As a person who stutters my whole life, I have been rejected. So I am okay with that aspect. And so when I go in and do an audition, I go do it. And then I forget it, and then I move on. Because I mean, there are a lot
Yeah,
of people who still have it in their head. Oh, he's like a Porky Pig. And so I have to educate. I said,
exactly.
no, I am not like Porky Pig. I just have a stutter. But when I'm acting, I do not stutter. So I'm here to audition. I have the script. I memorized it. I'm ready to go. It is like,
Yeah.
that's
Let me show you what I can
exactly,
do.
exactly. But I mean, give me the opportunity because after they hear that S word, it's over. It's over, you know? So yeah,
Yeah,
but no, no, I keep on doing it because we, as people who stutter, we are creative, resilient, resourceful, and courageous.
mhm,
I preach that to the entire
yeah,
world every time I hop on here. So, and it is the truth. It is the truth, truth, truth. So yes, sir. Ooh, I feel
absolutely.
good.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's a big one. I mean, a huge one. And I ask everybody, and it's split right down the middle. So here it is. Do you consider stuttering as a disability?
Oh, great. Another one of my favorite topics. So here's the answer that I want to give on that one. That's yes and no. Yes and no, because it depends upon the individual's experience. If we look at the definition of disability, disability specifically is supposed to reflect issues that a person faces in their life that they have trouble doing what they want to do. Okay. Disability is not, does the person have trouble, driving? That would be, in official terms, it would be an impairment that they might have some physical limitation in driving. The disability is, can they do it anyway? Right. And if they're having difficulty doing that, then that's disability. If they're not, then they're not experiencing a disability. Okay. So people who stutter, who are having trouble saying what they want to say because they stutter, they're having trouble getting the job that they want to get because they have trouble saying what they want to say. If they're being discriminated against, which many people who stutter are, then we would say that those aspects of their experience are aspects of disability. So some people who stutter do experience a disability. Other people who stutter say what they want to say. They're not held back. They're not experiencing negative reactions from the people in their personal environment. They're living a life that is unaffected by stuttering. We would say that those individuals are not experiencing a disability. So that's the key distinction that we want to make. So when you ask people, yeah, some are going to say it's a disability because they're experiencing one. And other people are saying, I'm not disabled because of this. It's not getting in my way. What'll mostly happen is there will have been a time in their life when they were experiencing disability, very often early in people's lives before they've come to terms with it. Then they are adversely affected. That's when they're experiencing disability. The goal of therapy, the goal of support is helping to get people to the place where they can say, yes, I stutter, but I don't have a stuttering disability. I don't have a stuttering problem in my life.
Oh, awesome, sir. Thank you so much. Woo, I cannot wait for the whole world to hear that. That is just phenomenal. Thank you, sir, so much. So let's talk about a career path. So what led you to being a in your career field?
Luck. Luck. Really? Seriously. I don't have a very compelling origin story. My background, when I first went to college, I wanted to study math. I loved math. I love physics. Back then, early field of computer science or middle field, computer science, physics. And I went to college and rapidly learned that no, I wasn't good enough to do that. In high school, I thought I was all that about math, and then I went off to college and learned that no, 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 no. And after a couple of very difficult semesters, the sciences invited me to consider the humanities. And so they showed me where that building was on campus. And I went over there and I didn't know what to do. I took some psychology classes because, everybody has psychology majors as backup, and that's what I was going to do. And then I took a linguistics class. My life changed. I loved it. I loved everything about it. Studying language just really moves me. So I did linguistics because I love studying language, and I did psychology because I love studying people. I'm actually terrified of people in person, but I like to study people. So I was real happy doing linguistics and psychology. They interact in psycho and sociolinguistics. And so I would have been perfectly happy to study that forever. I knew I wanted to be a scientist. I didn't know what in. I wanted to do research. I didn't, from the time I was 3, I didn't even know what the word meant. I knew I was going to do research. So I started asking my professors if there was some field where I could study language and people. And I went to a university that was very focused on pure science, and they didn't really think any. They said, stay with linguistics, stay with psychology. But one of my professors, very, very well known in the study of child language, said, my wife does a thing. She works with kids. They got some issues. Why don't you go talk to her? Well, his wife was a speech language pathologist, and she ran a center for children with speech and language issues. So I volunteered with her for the summer. And I was still a little scared because I didn't know what to do to help those kids, right? But I knew that that's what I was going to do, is I was going to be a speech language pathologist, and I was going to study kids with speech issues. Great. I'll be happy about that. So I went to apply to graduate school because in my field, in order to practice, you need to have a master's degree. That's the practice degree. And back then there was no internet that I could search, what are the best schools to go to. So I went to the library and I got the Barron's books that I had to look through. And in small print, there was a listing. And I looked through all the different schools and I picked a bunch of schools to apply to. And I was coming into the field not having a background in speech and language. I studied linguistics and psychology, so it's a little different. So I wasn't sure if I'd get in to graduate school. And so one of the applications for graduate school had a question on it. It said, is there any specific aspect of the field that you're particularly interested in? Well, I didn't know anything about the field, so I didn't have to fill that out. But I knew that my grandfather stuttered. And I thought it might help me get into graduate school if I wrote something there. I figured I would look more like I knew what I was doing if I wrote something there. So I wrote stuttering. I mean, that's it. It was just that degree of dumb luck. And indeed, I got into most of the schools that I applied to, not quite all of them. And so, okay, great. Then I wrote a note to all the faculty, a handwritten note saying, what are the chances of a person coming in with my background, being able to do research as a master's student? Because that's really what I want to do, is I want to do research. And 5 of the 6 programs didn't respond. One program did respond. And the person who became my doctoral mentor, Ed Contour, sent me literally a box this big, from top of the screen to the bottom of the screen, filled with papers that his students had been involved in the previous 5 years. Well, that's where I'm going to go. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go there. I'm going to study stuttering, and I'm going to do research. And literally within 2 weeks, I was in the lab doing that stuff. And so it was truly luck. And then I found out that I had joined a field with passionate, dedicated, caring people, both people who stutter and the people who had dedicated their lives to studying stuttering. And I just knew I had found a match, but it was a lot of luck. It could have gone wrong at many, many points, and it's just been great.
Wow, how awesome, sir. I mean, that just, I am so happy that you are where you are right now, because we need you. We need you. So, in my particular case, I was a pre-law. And so I'm in college because I'm in, a pre-law because, I love to argue. And so I thought, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. I mean, I had it in my head. I will be in a courtroom and I'm going to object. And I mean, just awesome.
No, you're out of order.
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
I
exactly.
So we all want to do that.
Until I went to the movies, and I don't know why. I saw the movie My Cousin Vinny. In that movie,
yeah, the word.
There was an attorney with a severe stutter. And when I tell you, I stopped eating popcorn, I stopped with my Dr. Pepper, I stopped eating my hot dog. When I saw him up there, and I was mortified. I thought, is that going to be me in the courtroom?
Yeah.
And I mean, he was hitting.
Yeah.
the jury box, and and the people in the jury eyes were open and their mouths were open in shock and disbelief. And so in that instant, I told myself, because it's called survival, I need to change. And so I watched it on a weekend. On Monday morning, I went into the registrar's office and changed from pre-law to psychology. So in my head, I thought I can help people, but in a different way, And so I got my bachelor's in psychology, and then I have a master's in industrial organizational psychology, because I love to see how people work in a group, and and so now I love what I do because I have incorporated it into what I do now. I am a trainer, and so I teach doctors and nurses, da da da. And so here is what I have found. I had been told my entire life I'm stupid. I have a mental retardation because of my stutter. So I heard that my entire life. So in my head, I can't do anything right. However, there was a job opening for a trainer to go and teach. So in my head, I thought, wouldn't that be awesome? Here I am, a person who has a stutter is going to apply for a job as a trainer. And so I did it. I had applied, and then I took ownership of it. So after I had applied, I packed up my whole office, because in my head I got this a job in the bag. And so I packed up my whole office, I put everything in my SUV, and I waited. I got the email that I had I made the cut, and then I had a panel, a job interview, and so I did that, and then a week after that, I was hired as a trainer. And when I tell you, I have found the joy of a teaching. I mean, when I go out there, I block and I repeat and, da da da. However, I go out there and I still do it. And at the end, I always hear huge applause. From everybody. They go, "You go, Pedro!" And I thought, how cool is that? Here is what I get, to do. And here I am. I am teaching our doctors, our nurses, our social workers, and I have a stutter. But look what I did. And it is truly awesome. And it is a huge, a blessing. So, yeah, but.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Pre-law is gone. So yeah.
Well, and so you think about the actors, the screenwriters who put that scene in, they thought it was harmless. It's just fun, they don't think about the impact that it has on all the people. Now, fortunately for you, you were able to stick with it and work, and work toward a future that you wanted. But it can be devastating for people to see this. And, yeah, we really need to do something about those portrayals, and we need to do something to help people understand that even when you face those setbacks, you keep at it, you keep at it, you keep at it, because you're going to get to the future that you want when you know what that future is and when you're ready to work hard for it. But it's uphill because society's tough.
It's a hard life, sir. However, I'm still here. I'm still here. All right.
Here,
So I
here.
want to talk about a dating because I mean, for everybody, it's a little hokey pokey. But if you have a stutter, whoo, let me tell you, it's a little bit
Now,
more. What's the word? Strenuous, debilitating. Talk about that hot topic, please.
sure, sure. So there's been some research done on people's experiences with dating, and indeed, it is harder. People report more difficulty. That said, I know plenty of people who finally did find their special someone, although it was difficult for them, although they went through it. And it was that special someone who either didn't care about their stutter or they were able to be open with. They're out there. They're out there. But it is a disheartening and discouraging experience to face rejection like that. Nobody wants that. It's another one of those examples where openness about stuttering is so critically important. I've told this story for years, but it's happened on more than one occasion when I'm working with a high school student, for example, and we're thinking about, homecomings coming up. They want to ask somebody to the dance, and I think about, well, let's play out these scenarios. Let's say you see that special somebody that you want to go introduce yourself to. All right. What are you going to do? And they say, well, I don't want them to know I stutter, because I'm used to hiding this. So I'm going to think about all the tricks that I've ever heard, whatever it was, breathing or speaking skills or whatever, and I'm going to get up the courage and go up and I'm going to ask them, for their number. Now, I've been telling this story long enough that people used to ask each other for their number. These days, they tell me the high school kids, they wouldn't ever dream of that because they don't want to know that. And they're not going to call them anyway. Okay. But back in the day, for me, you had to ask somebody for their number and then you had to call them. But let's say you get up there, you ask them for their number and they give you their number and you didn't stutter. And you're all relieved because you think, oh, great. I successfully hit it. They didn't know that I stuttered, got their number, but now you got to call them. And I tell you, it's a little weird if you don't stutter the first time you meet somebody, and all of a sudden the second time you start stuttering, right? So now the pressure's really on. You got to make sure that you don't stutter. You got to think about all the things, what words you're going to say, and you map it all out. You plan it. You finally get the courage. You pick it up, and you can tell I'm old because I still do a phone like this. And you can say, and you don't stutter. Oh, and you're so relieved because you didn't want them to know you stuttered. But you got a date for Friday night. You got to ask them to homecoming, right? Well, it's a little weird if you didn't stutter the first time you talked to somebody and you didn't stutter the second time you talked to somebody to all of a sudden start stuttering the third time. But now you got to get through all of Friday night and keep hiding who you are. It's going to happen eventually. It's going to come out. So what if we get to a future where that very first time you let some stuttering out? And if it's not coming out on its own, you force the issue. You do some fake stuttering, some voluntary stuttering, so that you know that they know that you stutter. And if you get the number, great. And if you don't get the number, and if it was because of the stuttering, well, then you didn't want the number. But that's a real tough lesson for high school boys to get. They're not quite ready to hear that yet, right? So you just gotta be able to be open. I asked a kid one time, he was a senior in high school. He was asking the girl out for homecoming, right? And he didn't want to stutter. Okay. All right. And he didn't. I say, so when you did the ask, how'd it go? He said, oh, it went great. I didn't stutter. I said, what do you mean you didn't stutter? Now, does she even know you stutter? He said, nope, she doesn't know. So, well, what are you going to do on homecoming? How are you going to get through the whole night hiding who you are? And this was his answer. This is verbatim. He said, well, I don't know, but I plan to dance a lot. So he's just going to keep hiding and hiding and hiding and hiding. It's not going to serve him well.
Yes, sir. Ooh, yeah, we have all been there. We've all been there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now, we had, previously talked about it, but here is the official one. Here is the official with, all of the a voice activated technology. You have Alexa, Siri, and Google Home. Are they helpful or harmful for people who stutter?
So it's a great question because there are some ways in which they can be helpful. There's no doubt about that. But the research that we've done in the team that I'm on through this NSF funded grant, some of these projects are led by Dr. Hope Gerlach Haug, show that no, most people who stutter report that they're harmful, that they either don't use them because they don't work very well with stuttered speech, or when they use them, they force people to use what is for them an unnatural speaking style to try to be fluent, makes them try to pass as non-stutterers, as fluenters, as we call it, or use fluency shaping techniques or use some kind of skill just to please the darn computer, right? And that is not authentic, and it makes people upset. People say that they would use them more if they worked better and that their quality of life would be improved if they work better. So yeah, for many people, they're a hindrance. And as they find their way into more and more devices, that it adds a digital layer to the discrimination that people are already experiencing. We've documented where there are some places when you call a phone tree, for example, where you don't get the option to push a button. You just get saying a few words while you're calling. I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Saying a few words while you're calling. I'm sorry, we can't understand you. And the system hangs up. There's no press 0 to talk to a human. And these are major systems like one of them that this is true, although I don't even know if this phone system is operating right now. The U.S. immigration system does not have a push a button for a human option. And so it becomes a significant barrier for people. And that's one of the goals of this project is to fix that, is to develop a universal voice AI that can understand everybody.
Oh, sir, because it's hard because they don't give you time, to respond, and then also a handful of all of the people whom I had asked from all over the world, a handful had told me it's good for a practice because
Yeah.
it isn't a human, it is a robot, and so I was like, oh, okay, interesting.
I have absolutely heard people say, I'll use it for people who want to practice fluency enhancing strategies. They'll use it because it kind of judges whether you're fluent enough, right? And some people don't care what the robot thinks, and they're like, "Oh yeah, so Siri's judging me." But I've had other people tell me, it hurts even more to have this computer judging me. It's bad enough I got people judging me all day long, and now even Siri doesn't like me. So yeah, it's a challenging thing. Now the companies are responding. They are adding the ability to determine a wait time, so how long it will listen. They are trying to improve the abilities of these systems to understand speech that's different from societal norms. But stuttering is particularly challenging because the AI models have difficulty with it. Our system that is in development is doing great. We have much more accuracy on our system than competing systems right now. But we have ways to go to do this research. We're still early in the process.
Oh, wow. Awesome, sir. Awesome. Okay. So how do you talk about how to, overcome, challenges with having a stutter, because they are quite daunting and huge
Mhm.
in a nature. So how do you tackle that?
Yeah. It's going to be a step at a time journey. And that's hard for people to hear at certain times in their lives, right? When we're young, we want a quick fix. We look ahead at our future. We say, I don't see how I can possibly face a whole future like this. And so the message that we want to provide, the therapeutic message, differs depending upon where people are in their journey. We want to highlight a message of hope and optimism, that there is a possibility for improvement. We want to open up possibilities for the future to recognize that improvement can look different for different people at different times in different ways. And what you think of as your goal right now may not be your goal later on. We want to be honest and say, yes, there are ways to make it easier to talk, but we also want to be honest and say there is no cure. There's no simple trick I can give you. There's no pill that I can give you that's going to make the stuttering go away. There are ways of handling it, though. So my approach as a clinician, I've been doing this for over 30 years, only working with people who stutter, is sort of a dry and bottom line. This is going to be hard, but it is doable. My goal is to help you get to the place where you can use the voice that you want to use. You can express yourself in the way that you want to express yourself. And depending upon what that goal is, you're either going to have a harder task or you're going to have a somewhat easier task. It's still going to be hard, but we want to work toward what works for you. And people get there. People get there. Sometimes, maybe not with me because they're not in that place yet in their life where they're ready to do that. Maybe I'm not the right match for them, but I don't want them to ever give up because I have this tremendous sense of optimism that all people who stutter can get to a point where they can communicate more in the way they want to communicate.
Oh, that is so awesome, sir. Thank you. I mean, I can feel the hope. It's all good. I can see the light. I can see the light. It's awesome. Awesome. Okay, so here's another hot topic. Woo, sir. So, all right. So I've heard it. However, I want the official answer. The official answer. So,
Hmm,
do you think it's okay to stutter, or is it important to keep chasing the fluency gods?
sure. So I don't know that my answer is official. Because here's what I feel is, again, people are going to be in different places in their lives. So I'll just tell you from my experience of what I've observed. Most people that I know who stutter, and I know many, many, many people who stutter because I've been involved with the community for decades now, find a place of peace where they know that it's okay to stutter. Okay, so most people come to that place where they know that they're going to stutter and it's okay to stutter. And they spent their years chasing the fluency god. They spent their decades, their lifetime chasing the fluency god, but finally were able to let that go. I'm not blaming them for all those years, though, because they live in a society that values that fluency god. And so they don't, this is the message that they get over and over again. You have to do this in order to be okay. So it's not surprising that they do that. The majority, though, come to a place of peace where they know that it's okay to stutter and that they can do anything they want to do, say anything they want to say, be anything they want to be, even though they might stutter. I also know some people, though, who value their fluency tremendously and know that they have worked hard to get there, and they practice diligently every single day in order to maintain their fluency. And I tell you what, it's not my place to tell them that they shouldn't do that. I would never say to a person like that, well, actually, you'll be a lot happier if you just let yourself stutter, because it's their value that they're living out. I met a fellow who told me that for more than 20 years, he had practiced every single day without fail for an hour every morning to help him maintain the fluency that he enjoyed. Fantastic. He was happy with that. He wasn't telling me, oh, I have to practice for an hour to get, I have done this. There's people who go to the gym every day for an hour. I hate them, but there are people who do that, right? Well, in this case, this was his connection to his success. So I don't want to say one is better than the other. I will tell you that in my experience, I've seen people go through that and come to a place of greater peace in their life once they accept their stuttering, but it's not a universal and it's not my right to judge.
Awesome, sir. I thank you for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so we are in the home stretch. So here is a very emotional question, because it gets me every time. But what can stuttering teach people?
Ah, yes. Oh, so much, so very much. Because listeners ought to listen, and it can teach people to be just a touch more patient. Now, I'm a busy person. I'm always racing from place to place. I can't, in my conversations, I can't remember people's names because I'm, like everybody else, I'm always somewhere else, right? Yeah. But when I'm talking with people who stutter, and this is my job, so I better do it, I set all that other stuff aside. Right? I can't be thinking about where I'm going to be next or what messages are on my phone. I can learn. And I'm not saying that it's an easy lesson. I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I've looked the other way sometimes when somebody's in a block and I'm thinking about something else, but it can teach us. It doesn't take much to show respect to people. Just a few added seconds to show that respect, to listen deeply, truly listen, not to how people are saying something, but what they're truly saying. It can teach them that. It can teach compassion. It can teach that nobody should be bullied for anything. But here's a real concrete example where we know the adverse impact that this can have on people's lives, and we know that we can diminish it. Stuttering can be used as an example of how to create a little bit kinder world and a world in which people have the time and the respect to express themselves. Right now, my colleagues and I are trying to highlight stuttering as an example of a variation in human experience that we don't have to. Yes, technically it's a disorder in a medical sense, but we don't have to fixate on the disorder aspect. Let's just say, all right, it's different. Can we accept it? And I hope that this can serve as a model for other differences as well. Stuttering is important in and of its own right, but it can also serve as a proxy for a whole bunch of different differences because the acceptance process that people go through, the coming out that they go through as they learn to use their authentic voice, it applies to a whole bunch of different areas. And the world could use it. And I fear that we could really use it right now.
Oh, that's so awesome, sir. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Thank you. What advice would you give to people who stutter?
Know that you're awesome. Yeah, that it's okay to stutter, even though society tells you otherwise. Find those voices that are telling you that you're okay. Whether they're through your stuttering support group or through a skilled clinician or through a family member, that special someone that you met that you stuttered to and they didn't run away, find those reinforcing voices because you've got a lifetime of negative voices playing in your head. It's hard to drown yourself out. So let other people help with that. Let other people tell you that you're awesome and believe them when they tell you
yes,
that.
sir. Because I don't have to tell you the negative, self-talk is real. And it's out there. I've had mine for, a decades, but I gave him a name and took back the power. And so I call him Oscar the Grouch because, I'm old school. Oscar the Grouch. And
Absolutely.
He pops up on the daily, but I shut him down. This is what I'm going to do. And it works because I am now in charge. He was for years, sir. For years, he controlled my entire life. But I had to take a stand, say, no, I am in control of my entire life. And so you are now history. And so, yeah, but it's real, sir. Yes, sir. Awesome.
Yep. He had his time. He had his time. His time is over.
Yes, sir. So here is our last question, and it's a big one. If you had the opportunity to give insight about stuttering on the world stage, what a message would you convey?
All right. That's a good one. It's okay to stutter. And we really mean it. I mean, it really, really is okay. Not just it's kind of okay, or it's okay to have a little stutter, or it's okay to have controlled stutters. It's really, really okay to stutter in whatever shape or form it takes. And that's the big ones and that's the little ones, because what people say is more important than how they say it. And if the world knew that, there'd be less stigma. There'd be less negative messaging to our kids. There'd be less for the bullies to pick on. There'd be less for people to judge themselves and hold themselves back on. There'd be less of that negative thinking. And, because people who stutter can be and do anything they want. And so if we could truly have people know it's okay. It's okay. We mean it. That's the one. That's what we got to get is we really mean it. It's not just words.
Oh,
that could make a difference.
How cool, sir. Hold on. I got to give you the horns because that was awesome. I have goosebumps. That is just truly awesome, sir. And we have been talking for over 2 hours, but it doesn't even seem that way because I have enjoyed every aspect of our conversation, sir. I mean, you are truly awesome. I am so glad that you are in our corner, helping us and fighting for us. I mean, it puts me at ease because there are a lot of us out there who are lost and who need help and support. And to have you out there, sir, is a huge comfort. That you are here for us to help us, and I am truly grateful. And I mean, I thank you for everything that you do for us out there.
Well, you're very kind. I've been very fortunate. It's been, magnificent. I've met the best people in the world, my best friends, and it's a passionate, dedicated group of people. And I'm fortunate to be able to spend time with this group. So
awesome,
thank you,
sir. And then also, so here is the awesome part. I am extremely blessed. My podcast is in 141 countries on 6 continents. I'm still waiting on that one person from Antarctica. Still waiting.
I need
anybody.
Yeah,
anybody. And so that way I am on all of our continents. And so, I mean, it is truly awesome. I mean, I get heartfelt emails from all over the world. I thought I was the only one, but I heard your podcast. I heard you stutter on the radio. And I mean, you are my tribe. And oh, sir, I cannot tell you how much, my heart is just extremely full. And I mean, it's just, it is so awesome. And so how can, and it will happen, how can anyone from around the world, reach out to you for additional awesome information?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's a couple of different ways. As I mentioned before, I am not allowed on social media. But my company, Stuttering Therapy Resources, is, and my business partner, Nina Reeves, does great stuff on Instagram, and Facebook about stuttering. So that is at Stuttering Therapy Resources. That's where you find us online, or at our website, stutteringtherapyresources.com. Okay. Now, the company is mostly focused, our publications are mostly for speech language pathologists and caregivers to help kids and adults who stutter. But we are going to be releasing new material for adults in the next little bit, a free handout for adults to focus on shifting the idea about what stuttering is from necessarily being a disorder to, yes, fine, but being able to view it as a difference, as an example of verbal diversity. So you find all that through Stuttering Therapy Resources. People can email me directly, though. It's just speech@yaruss.com. That's my last name, YARUSS.com. And I answer emails from people all over the world, every day, mostly clinicians, but also people who stutter, family members of people who stutter. So speech@yaruss.com, and I'll be very happy to talk to folks, to email with folks.
How cool, sir. And so I will have all of those hyperlinks in the podcast notes. And so that way anyone around the world can hit it and they will find you. And so I want to tell you, sir, just
fantastic.
One more time, I am truly honored. I've had the best. I mean, I don't have any words, sir. You are truly awesome. You are a bright light, and you are what we need out there. And I am extremely thankful that to have an opportunity on a weekend to have a talk with you, sir. And this is a huge honor. And so I thank you.
Well, my thanks back to you as well. I enjoyed it.
Thank you again. Hope you have an awesome weekend. Take care, be well, and stay safe.
You do the same.
Thank you, sir.
If you like this podcast, head on over to Apple Podcasts. Subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you for listening, and we will talk again.